What's up, and welcome back to Opposites Attract Podcast. This is Sonia Ramirez, your girl, and I'm sitting next to
Miguel Ramirez.
What's up, everybody? How was your day?
How was your week?
How was your life?
Going.
We are super excited to have this amazing guest with us.
Yes, we have Sandi Cimino with us, who we've had on before from the Well-Made Bed. Thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely.
We've upgraded a little bit since you came back last time.
You're like, ooh, that's new. And then you have all these lights in your face.
I know.
And this
I need
nice
a button
camera.
like that every time I get up in the morning. Just hit the button.
Oh, that's a good one, right?
That's your alarm.
There we go.
That's funny. That's a good one. So we are excited to have you on. As most of our listeners know, we have a preteen. And we've been going through some things. She's been going through some things. And I couldn't think of a better person to have on the podcast to not only get our questions answered, but to also help some of the listeners out there that may be going through challenges and obstacles with their preteen or their teen. You know, so I'm excited to have you on to talk about that and maybe bring some awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Yay.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. So we, for those of you that have been following the podcast for some time, Sandi was actually on our podcast, like episode 46, 48? I'll find it. But you guys can go back and check out that episode because there was a lot of good information. And I mean, even till this day, I mean, that was like over a year ago, right?
Yeah. Well, how we met.
Yeah, definitely over a year ago.
We got an email from the school saying that there was going some kind of parenting class. And I'm like, oh my God, we need this.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what I'm doing.
It's like we're all jacked.
So let's go. And I remember walking into the class and there were seats right in the very front. And that's me.
And I was like, let's sit in the back. You're like, let's sit in the front. And
I'm like,
oh,
bad kids sit in the back. We're going in the front. And just listening to how you were talking about brain development. And I never even thought about that. You know, I was just thinking she's being a pain in the ass.
Like, why are they just being so difficult? They want to fight everything.
Yeah.
Right.
But so when Sandi was on last time, it was episode 48, Blended Families, Children's Emotions, and How Social Media Affects Kids.
Yes.
So you guys can go back and check that out.
Yes. And so she's 11 years old and, you know, she's already going through puberty. She's already hit her girly thing. And it just seemed like she woke up a different person. And I'm like, oh my goodness, who are you? And what did you do with my sweet, sweet, loving girl?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
So what is going on exactly? You know, with this whole, you know, the development and, you know, you're the expert.
Well, I don't know if I'm the expert, but because I'm just a few years ahead of you as far as all the craziness. But years and years ago, I worked with a social worker who had started. She had worked when her kids, before she had kids, and then stopped working and stayed at home. And then when her kids were teenagers, she stopped working again. And she said, there's not much difference between toddlerhood and teenagerhood. And when we think about parents who have those 2-year-olds and those 3-year-olds, and they're going through the very normal developmental stage of independence. So they're figuring out, I'm a separate person from my parents. Right. So, and I have a body and my body can do amazing things, and I have a voice, and I'm going to use my voice, and I'm going to use it, you know, as 2- and 3-year-olds do at the most inappropriate time to scream no,
Right.
or I want that, or give it to me, or you can't make me, and all those things. And we have the same reaction. What happened to that sweet little person that wanted to help and wanted to do dishes with me and wanted to cuddle and watch cartoons? And it's the same thing with teenagers. It just, the independence piece looks different. And
that is so good.
And they need our support in different ways. So often parents think that my teenager doesn't need me because that focus starts to shift to peers.
Yes.
They just need us in different ways.
At least, well, I'm thinking about, in my case with, you know, our daughter, I mean, I see you still, like, she still comes up to you, but me is like completely different. Before this like switch, it was like hugs and like she couldn't squeeze me hard enough and she always wanted, but now it's like, all right, get away.
Yeah.
You know, I'm good. And it's like her friends and you still, you know, talk to her, but it's tough.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I don't know, like me thinking about it, sometimes I was like, I don't understand exactly what she's going through, but if she's pushing me away, I was like, maybe I just give her some space and then try and figure it out.
Right.
You know, because I don't want to be like on top of her when she doesn't want me around.
Right.
You know?
Well, and again, remember, you know, just thinking about our teenagers talk to us and they start to change not only the way they need us, but the way they express they need us. Yeah. So it's a language we're not used to hearing or listening to or listening for. And so when you think about and I see this and kind of hear this a little bit more with dads and daughters, especially when daughters are going through this. So you think about if you wake up one morning and your body doesn't feel like your body anymore. And that's what boys are going through that too, but girls are going through that where things are happening.
Yeah, it's on a different level.
Yeah. And so there's the relationship. Well, mom's body is similar to mine because she's a woman, so it doesn't feel so weird.
Yeah.
But dad, you know what?
You're completely different.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm feeling pretty protective of my body and my emotions, and I'm not quite sure what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, so she's maybe not pushing you away as much as she's asking you to relate to her in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think I said this on the last podcast as well. We, as parents, go through the same developmental stages as our kids do. So your daughter's going through preteen and puberty and adolescence and this developmental stage of teenagerhood. You're going through the developmental stage of being parents of a teenager.
Yeah.
And that's a big learning curve because we kind of, you know, we got sort of a little, our ego kind of is there. And
it hurts your feelings.
Well, yeah. And you think, you know, by now, like you figured out how to parent this beautiful kid, right?
It's like right when you think you're doing good.
Right when you think you got it all dialed in, it's like, boom, things change. It's a totally, you know, and you have to figure out how you relate and how you want to communicate and how your child's going to receive that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so parents are more important at this age than we think we are. But we're just important in a different way that's sometimes hard to understand.
Yeah.
You know, the way I just thought about it, it's kind of like, at least my relationship, it's almost like double Dutch. Like I'm on the outside and I'm just waiting. And then when I see an opening, like I try and get a hug, or I try to get a kiss, or I try to like have like a moment.
Yeah.
But usually I'm on the outside just watching, waiting.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is the more you give her the freedom to come to you, the more she trusts that you're going to respect her.
Yeah.
And you'll probably see the more hugs that you get, because she knows it's safe to come to you. Not that you're making her feel unsafe. It's more of a mental safety sort of thing. Like, I can be who I am and I can decide when I want a hug from dad and when I don't want a hug from dad, and dad respects me.
Yeah.
And that's so critical for girls because dads are the first relationship. So when she is given the right to decide when she is touched, that is incredibly important to empower her to be able to do that when she's in the scary dating age and when she goes and moves out of the house in her early 20s and is on her own.
Yeah.
Yeah. I at the beginning when this started, Miguel was taking it very personal, and I saw him distancing himself like from her and taking it personal.
No, it wasn't that I was distancing myself, but I just thought about it. I was like, I don't understand what's happening. And like I said, like I don't want to push myself onto her if she has like these feelings or what. Like I don't want to make her feel awkward or feel bad with me. I was like, I'm just going to give her some space and maybe she'll come back, or I got to try and figure some things out. But I just kind of noticed like the more time that I give her, like eventually she'll come around, or when she comes out of her room, then, you know, and one thing that I kind of notice is like, if she doesn't want a hug, and I'm guessing this is probably with most kids, if she doesn't want a hug, like I'll go to give her a hug and she's got those elbows pinned down to her ribs. You know, because I'm trying to get one Like in
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu, we talk like I'm trying to get an underhook and get an arm under and get one over so I can give her a good squeeze.
Yeah.
But she's got those elbows pinned in and she's like pushing me away,
Yeah.
you know? So I'm like, okay. And then maybe I'll give her like a little, okay, well, you know,
Yeah.
I'll be back some other time,
Yeah.
you know?
And it's always good, you know, again, with that helping, and it's important for boys too. It's not just girls, but it's important for boys. It's okay to say, can I give you a hug? And just be okay with the answer being no.
That's a good, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I'd really love to give you a hug. Is that okay with you? And then, again, that reinforces that it's okay to have your boundaries and your bubble space and be able to surround yourself with people that respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And there is that piece of that physical intimacy with your kids, touching, stroking their hair. We used to get to sit with them while they fall asleep or rock them when they fall asleep.
Yeah.
That physical intimacy looks different, but they still need it from a physiological, biological level. So it could be that, instead of a hug, ask her what some options are so that you're getting that endorphin boost of the physical touch. So it's a high five, it's a fist bump, it's whatever it might be, that you get to find your own thing with her.
A high five.
Yeah, well, but you get to find your own thing with her that then fulfills that need for you. Because I don't want to say you have to put all those feelings in a box, because that's not healthy for you either. As parents, it's okay for us to want certain things a certain way. That's that's human.
Yeah.
So how do you get that connection bump that you're looking for with her in a way that meets the needs for both of you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now next year, she's going to be starting junior high school. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I remember going into junior high school. I was excited, but it was different also because I started junior high school in 10th grade instead of 9th grade. So I was already like in New York, we could finish 9th grade in junior high. Oh, wait, no, I'm talking about something else. But I remember when I started junior high school, I was excited. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you're going from being, the top of the class to the very bottom of the class. Mm-hmm. Like, what are some things that she's going to have to deal with going from from elementary to junior high school?
Yeah. Middle school is probably one of the most precarious times. Mm-hmm. There is a lot more bullying that happens in middle school. They're just learning, when we look at puberty starting, like physiologically, biologically starting earlier than we actually see it on the outside. We've got kids, going into junior high and middle school that are, at the beginning of figuring things out, right at the time where teachers are expecting more independence and I shouldn't say expecting as is, you have to do this, but they are encouraging. That's part of their role, is to encourage a little bit more independence, a little bit more of tripping and falling and,
and figuring it out.
Yeah. Problem solving and figuring it out. It's also the time where, for a lot of parents who have been involved in schools are like, Mom, Dad, we got this. Yeah. So there is that letting go and cutting of ties with being available to the school. Not that the school doesn't need, schools need your support. Schools still need the support, but it's not in the classroom the way it is in elementary school or on the playground or in the lunchroom.
Is it more like of an accountability support?
Well, I think it's a support as in, helping monetarily, helping with special events. At my kids' middle school, they always needed parent volunteers in the snack shack at lunchtime.
Okay.
We would go visit them for lunch. And, more involved. Like you're more involved. They're they're helping them to become independent.
Right. And so, and that partnership is so important. Being able to be in touch with your child's teacher, parent-teacher conferences. Those are important opportunities to interact and help support your child through this major transition, into learning how to become an adult. And I know I shared on the podcast before, Dan Siegel has so much amazing stuff online. His book, Brainstorm, is the name of the book. He wrote it for parents and teenagers to read. And I did a book study last summer with a group of high school teachers. And it was an amazing opportunity, not only for me as the parent of a couple of teenagers, but for them to start to look at what is going on inside of their students' brains. And for some of them, their children. They had children who are teenagers. But he does a great job. And again, because it's written from the focus of helping teens understand what's happening. That's awesome. So that they can take advantage of it. The first part, there's 3 parts of the book, but the first part is sharing of this information, or first half. The second half of the book is all about what he calls mind sight. It's on that video that I shared, the adolescent brain. But he has these mind sight exercises. So there are actually things that teenagers can look at and say, how do I help my brain wire in those good life skills while it's growing? You know, what works? There's a lot of noise out there, and it's getting louder for teenagers, especially as they adapt to going back in interactions with other teenagers, with the world, with teachers, to be able to quiet the noise. Yeah. And so another opportunity I had as a result of COVID was connecting with teenagers, a couple of teachers, 6th graders, as well as high school, to talk about reducing the noise and reducing the stress.
Love it.
So talking with them about that internal dialogue and how to stay present and mindful in the moment to reduce that noise, to help them reduce stress.
And I talk to my kids as often about that. Like, I'm teaching them about meditation. I'm teaching them to be aware of their thoughts, what they're telling themselves, all of that. And it's like with Audrey, I was talking to her about it today, and she's like, Mom, I know, I got it. And I'm like, do you? I'm like, okay. She's like, you talk to me about this all the time. And I said, okay, so what do I say? And she repeated it. And I'm like, I'm so happy.
She's listening.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if you're listening because you're so quiet and there's no, there's no expression. She's like, it's because I'm listening. Yeah. I'm like,
that's crazy.
So she's like, so she's like, no more talking about this for like a year. I don't know about that long, but hey.
But we could do it. We can compromise.
Yeah. But now it's with Joey, with him, because he has so many emotions, his temperament, and he's very temperamental and just at times negative. So I've been just talking to him about it. I'm like, okay, how are you feeling? What is your body? What are you feeling in your body? And just talking to him about it so that he becomes more aware of how he's feeling, so that he can feel the emotion, sit with the emotion, but then let it go. Like, you don't want to have, your day. You don't want to have a bad day. You want to have a good day. So let's turn this around. So what do we need to do in order to turn this around?
Right. And it's, you make an important point in terms of those difficult emotions, is teaching our kids to sit with it for a little bit.
Yes.
Because we have a society that says you have to be happy.
Right.
That happy is
those
the only,
emotions are no good. Those are not good.
Yes. Those negative.
It's not good. It's being able to recognize it, understand it, sit in it, then let it go.
And but our society tells us, we can't do sad. We can't do sad. We can't do frustrated. We definitely can't do angry, because that's way too scary of an emotion. So then we end up role modeling and teaching our kids, you just forget those. You ignore them, you shove them down.
Those are not okay.
Yeah, those are not okay emotions. And so understanding, oh gosh, I'm going to forget her name, but I'll try to get the link to you, Miguel, to put in the notes.
Sure.
But she talks about Tree Franklin. Popped into my head, Tree Franklin. And she talks about emotions are energy in motion. Mm-hmm. And so all emotions are good. It's what we do with them.
Yes.
It's what we do
how
with
you
them.
respond.
Yeah, where they could be harmful or helpful.
Right.
And so and they're so, I always say our kids have so much available to them to the point where it's kind of overwhelming. So taking advantage of the fact that most of our kids are kind of, surgically attached to their cell phones.
Yeah.
So giving them the Calm app. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Calm.
Our kids don't have phones.
Not yet.
Yes, that's
We talked about it, but we're still working on that.
No, you're good. That's good. But for those of you out there like me that have kids with phones,
we're not convinced, so they don't have them yet.
But Calm, and just like it sounds, there's a free version and a paid version, but the free version has a lot of stuff on it. And for boys that, again, that challenge of even recognizing that you have emotions.
Well, I'm sure they can get it on a tablet too.
Oh yeah, tablet.
Yeah, so they can. They have a tablet. It's not like
But LeBron James has a meditation on Calm about mind and body. So
and she's into basketball.
Yeah. And I was thinking even for Joey, it's that was one thing, during Lent in our family, we always, do something you give up and then something that you add. So something that helps you. So you're thinking about, adding something, that makes your life better. And I had another one of those proud mom moments where both my kids said, I think meditating. Yeah. And so my son was the one
that's how you know you're doing something right.
Yeah. Then it's like, okay, all those times where you think they're not listening.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, okay. But he's the one that told me about he went on Calm and he said, LeBron James has a thing. I'm like, that's cool. I think you should listen to LeBron and see what he has to say. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of different types of apps that help kids be able, because let's face it, for us adults, being mindful, first of all, but meditating, calming our brains down enough to sit in the moment with all of our anxieties about our kids, especially now with, hopefully, knock on wood, coming out of the pandemic and being able to interact. That is so important for teenagers.
Yes.
And so we've got to manage that stress for ourselves and anxiety of what that means and how to support them and the energy that it takes to be around their peers.
So, go ahead.
Sorry. Before the podcast, we were chit-chatting when you were like, oh, we need to start recording.
Yeah, I was like, I'm about to bring a microphone in here.
Right? But you said something that was so important. And it's like, before we can understand what our kids are going through, we need to be aware of what's going on within. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we were talking. I said, before we can take care of our kids, we have to take care of ourselves. So this pandemic and just, parenting kids is hard. Parenting teenagers is hard. Doing all of that within the context of a global pandemic I'm surprised we are all still vertical.
I'm
literally.
surprised I still have hair.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember, but there were times that we were thinking like, we're going to go back to cave day. We might have to fend for ourselves. We're going to be like throwing sticks in the bushes, trying to catch something to eat. Like it was crazy when you laugh, but there was a time when the shelves were empty and we're like, what are we going to do? Yeah. We were talking about, you go back and listen to this podcast. There was a time when we're like, we may have to teach our kids ourselves.
Yeah.
They may not go back to school.
Yeah.
That was a real thought.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before we get so focused on how do I help my kids? How do I, things are crazy. I can't handle it. The reality is you've got to start with yourself. You've got to start with your own self-care. And self-care doesn't have to be big. And self-care doesn't have to be a day at the spa, although I highly recommend that whenever you can get it.
Well, okay then. Did you hear that?
I know, Sandi said, right?
Yeah. And self-care looks different for men and for women.
Oh, geez.
And it could be, I always say, balancing your checkbook can be an act of self-care, because if your stress is about you don't know where your finances are, or you hear that noise in your car and something's coming. And so sometimes an act of self-care is balancing your checkbook.
We're tying up loose ends of things that have to get.
Exactly. Making a list, making a to-do list. Sometimes self-care is, cooking, doing a day's worth of cooking. So, you have stuff in the freezer for those days that's crazy that you really just want to lay on the couch and you pull something out.
Yep,
yes.
A walk
or laying on the couch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or laying. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I always, I don't remember the website and I'm stealing this, so I want to fully recognize this is not my idea. But talking about creating, because self-care is all about creating habits. It's all about creating a habit, and it's also deeper than that. It's about valuing yourself and your own energy and honoring your own body and listening to your body and your emotions and honoring the energy that you need to be a parent fully present for these teenagers that take us for a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Right.
Really being able to create that habit, and an easy way to create a habit is to marry it to something you already do. And in my trainings, I talk about toothbrush, about brushing your teeth. Now I would challenge anybody out there to admit, first of all, but to really truly go an entire 24-hour period without brushing your teeth once. Okay, so thinking about that. The first thought is, ew, right? Gross.
Yeah.
Second thought is, my significant other would not kiss me for 24 hours or want to be anywhere near me. But yet we go weeks and sometimes months without practicing self-care. And we never once think, yuck, that's not good. So taking toothbrushing and marrying it to a self-care habit. And starting small, starting very, very small.
After I brush my teeth, then we're going to do this.
Yeah. After I brush, or before, and I would encourage it before, because if we say after, you're brushing your teeth for 2 minutes, right? Everybody brush their teeth for 2 minutes. And in 2 minutes time, you have probably 120 thoughts, a new thought every minute, right?
Yep.
So you've got 120 thoughts between starting brushing your teeth and ending it and remembering to do the self-care. So I encourage, before you brush your teeth.
This is what I do.
Yeah, write it down. Before I brush my teeth, I'm going to sit for 10 minutes.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Before I brush my teeth, I'm going to do 10 jumping jacks. Before I brush my teeth, I'm going to, do a 10-minute meditation. Whatever it is.
That's cool.
Yeah, that you're marrying it to something you already do.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And not picking up the phone as soon as you wake up.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
it's
man.
like you have to disconnect. You have to disconnect.
Yeah.
And the way you start your morning is so important. It's so important because you're starting your day. Yeah. So, if you're opening emails and picking up your phone and allowing the stress first thing in the morning,
right.
It's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Does the name The Well-Made Bed have anything to do with that? With how you start your day?
Absolutely, it does. It has to do with creating a solid foundation for yourself on a daily basis. We talk about, we talk about values. We think about the foundation of our childhood and what that has provided for us, or maybe not provided, and we've had to, in our adulthood, rebuild that foundation a little bit. Yeah. But it really is about starting every day, truly, with that foundation. That not picking up the phone, or if you're picking up the phone, that it's something that is bringing joy and
love.
energy, and you've just spent however long, you sleep 10, 8, 6 hours,
5,
whatever it is. Yeah.
Whatever it is, hopefully closer to 7, 6, 7 hours, that you have done this beautiful thing for your body to rejuvenate it, and doing something that continues that when you're conscious. So it might be, having some, you hit your phone and you have soothing music, making a quick plug for a local Phoenix artist. Her name is Morgan Harper Nichols. And she has a daily email that she just does beautiful artwork. And it really is about, just believing in yourself and being okay, being in the middle.
Yeah.
You've come so far, and it seems like the end is not quite close enough, but just recognize all you've done and all you've learned at this point where you are now.
I remember when you were leaving out of town for work, I made the decision for those days that I would put music on in the morning, like happy music. Yeah. And I would just wake up the kids with hugs and kisses. And that's something that I need to get back into because I can see their energy. Like I can see the shift in them, you know, especially with my son, especially with him. Because my daughter wakes up to music anyway. You know, she goes to sleep with listening to meditation music.
Good.
You know,
Good.
But that is so right. So, you know, take note, you know, in order for you to be able to take care of your family, period, right? You have to take care of you first.
Absolutely. And it's not as hard as we think, and it doesn't take as long as we think. I mean, you'll be amazed. Even if your self-care is, I go to bed 10 minutes earlier every night. Yeah. You know, if your normal bedtime is somewhere around midnight, just try going to bed at 11:50 and try that for a week or two and see how that makes a difference. And sometimes what we need is permission. You know, a lot of times what gets in the way, we say it's time, we say we don't have enough time, but we literally do. We literally do have enough time. But really it's about giving yourself permission. So I also encourage, if you are not able to write yourself a permission slip, find someone who loves you and have them write you literally old school back in the 80s.
I allow.
Before email, I give myself permission to, and my permission slip for myself is I give myself permission to be unavailable. Because that's my big thing, is that I always want to be available to my kids, available to my husband, available to people that need me and count on me. Yeah. But I don't have to. I can carve out 10, and I will tell you now, I can carve out 30 minutes to be unavailable to anybody and everybody.
And be available for yourself.
And be available for myself, and just do, you know, sometimes that's a 30-minute nap. Yeah. Sometimes it's 30 minutes of reading. You know, sometimes it's 30 minutes, although 30 minutes of meditation typically ends in a little bit of a nap anyway. But you know, sometimes it's just sitting and not doing anything. And sometimes it's 30 minutes of going through my calendar and just making sure I'm listing out all the things that, you know, that are important, being able to, you know, focus on the important things that need to get done. So,
talking about starting your day, I don't know if you've seen there was like a speech by he was a Navy SEAL.
Yes.
The William H. McRaven, Make Your Bed. He's got a book named Make Your Bed. I haven't seen it, but I've seen the speech on YouTube. Yeah. And it's a great speech. Yep. I would encourage everybody to check it out. But he's a Navy SEAL commander, and he talks about making your bed and how that starts your day off the right way. And even if you have a complete crap of a day, you're coming home to a made bed that, you know, is clean and
dude, that is so me, right? Yeah. Like I do not. He's like, why are we gonna make it? We're just gonna sleep back in it, get back in it.
Well, that's because I've always gotten up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
You know, no, but I'm saying even when on the weekends, I'm saying too. You know, it's just something. You're right. Like if I walk into my room and my bed's not made, it's just it throws me off. Yeah. You know. So let's get back with these teens.
If any of you guys would like to go pick up any of these books, or the book Make Your Bed,
or Miracle Morning,
that's Miracle Morning, that's another good one to start your day off. You guys can pick them up on Amazon, and if you go through our website, oppositesattractpodcast.com. You'll see a support the show link, whether you hit the menu button on your phone or you see it at the top of the website on the computer. If you click the support the show link, anything that you purchase through that Amazon link isn't going to cost you anything extra, but it helps out the show. And you'll also see a link to Trust Inc. And Trust Inc. is?
We are a nationwide mobile notary agency and a signing agency as well. Right now, we're not doing too many general notary, but we are focusing on the signing agent aspect of what we do. We do a lot of work with title companies and lenders. So if you are looking to sell, purchase, or buy a home, you can request Trust Inc. to be your signing agency.
And that's trustincUSA.com. You can look up Trust Inc. and check out the reviews. We have great reviews. Also, we're affiliates with Libsyn, who hosts our podcast. And if you guys would like to start a podcast, you have a hobby that you want to talk about, you can give Libsyn a try, and they will distribute your podcast to everywhere. Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, all the big distributors, they can get it out there. And whatever month you sign up in for free, if you use promo code OAP for Opposites Attract Podcast, you'll get the rest of that month for free, and you'll get the next month for free for trying out Libsyn. promo code OAP. You can also find our merch on Amazon by searching Opposites Attract Podcast. You can see the shirt that Sonja's wearing. We got a couple other ones. We got phone cases. We have, a bunch of other stuff. If you search Opposites Attract Podcast on Amazon, you'll find it. And you can watch the podcast, share the podcast, listen to it all on our website, oppositesattractpodcast.com.
All that good stuff.
So I think we probably forgot something because I want to get back into it. But if I remember, I'll drop it in eventually. But, earlier you were saying something about the noise in junior high school, that the kids are going to have to process a lot of noise, or they're going to be hearing a lot of noise.
Yeah.
What type of noise? Can you give us some examples of the noise that the kids are going to have to deal with?
Yeah. I call it the supposed to be. You're supposed to have something, supposed to be something, supposed to look like something. And I will tell you this, I feel like this generation, our generation of kids, are incredibly lucky, but also that comes with a bit of overwhelm that there is so much diversity that is talked about. We may not be at a point as a country or in a world that we respect all those differences, but they are out there and the kids are talking about them and they're working to figure them out. So that's great, but it can also create a little bit more pressure to, what am I supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be in this world? And
like identity-wise?
Yeah, identity-wise, outside and inside. And so they're going to be trying on different identities. And that sounds really kind of funny, but don't be surprised if your teen comes home and says something like, I think I want to be this. It might be career-wise. It might be the way they dress. And then maybe a week or 2 or 24 hours later, it's something different. So understanding that wishy-washiness that sometimes we attribute to hormones is them figuring stuff out.
Like and who they are.
Yeah. And as parents, just encouraging and asking questions, Yeah. Oh, that sounds really cool. Tell me more. Tell me more about that. What makes that exciting for you? I do this myself. Why do you think that? And what I really want to know is, how did your brain come up with that? That's how I've learned. Because why do you think that? Why gets received as more of an attack, like I have to justify why, rather than an inquisitive why. And so, how did your brain come up with that? And, encouraging our kids when they do weird stuff that you don't understand, as long as it's not harmful or demeaning or destructive, I love the way your brain works. Just giving them that encouragement to have the freedom to not have to think they're supposed to be one way.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that noise, that peer noise, because what's happening developmentally with kids is they are shifting with teenagers. They are shifting and learning how to be adults. And that means they don't necessarily need to learn about how am I in relationship with the significant adults in my life, my parents, my aunts, my counselors, coaches, whatever, teachers. I'm trying to figure out, how do I be in relationship with my peers? And that includes trying on these different identities and being accepted in your peer group, or finding your peer group, finding your tribe, finding the people that may not necessarily think like you or look like you, but they accept you and they say that's okay. And they hold you accountable. I mean, that's a blessing when your child finds a peer group that says you can be who you want to be, but we're going to hold you accountable for being respectful. We're going to hold you accountable for, being a human being, and that's great. And a lot of kids at middle school don't quite have that maturity yet, but some of them do. Yeah. And so those are great friends for our kids to have. So that trying on and that figuring out, and even I use the term, and I think it comes from the Brainstorm book, but he talks about mating rituals. And when we think about like thinking about yourself in your 20s when you were out in the clubs and you know those mating rituals, it's the eye contact, it's the
Then you start presenting.
yeah, exactly. No, but it's think of a peacock. Think of peacocks.
My feathers go up.
Yeah, you start to show your color, right? So, you see somebody and they notice you and you notice them and you kind of sit a little higher and you're, and that's part of the mating ritual. There's nothing wrong with flirting. And so
fun.
Yeah. But our kids are, we have to remember our kids are doing it with 11, 12, and 13-year-old brains as well. Brains that aren't quite strongly wired to think about the consequences down the line.
They're still figuring that out. Yeah.
Yeah. That's where we have to help them. And, with executive function, the prefrontal cortex, we have to help them with using ours as well. And so that's where...
So can you explain that after?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we talk about about when we were talking about Miguel with you and your daughter, about being able to ask for a hug, being able to recognize the signs when she is open for that physical closeness with you and when you might need to take a step back, and your reaction being, okay, whatever you want, you get to decide what's good for your body. That lays a foundation when the flirting becomes, this unwanted attention that now, because I've practiced with my dad, I know that I can say I know how to keep myself safe.
Yeah.
So those are some of those things that help, and talking through and working really hard as parents not to get that, oh my gosh, feeling. I mean, not to express it.
Right.
If you have a situation where you're talking and they're telling you, your teenager is telling you about interacting with someone that all of your warning signs go off.
Yep.
Switching from the protector brain, which is first and foremost where we go, asking more questions, more of that curiosity. Tell me more about this. What made you feel uncomfortable? What did you do? What helped you do that? What did you not do that you wish you do? How can I help you make sure the next time you do this? Whether it's a romantic relationship or whether it's a peer. I mean, it's just as important for them to stand up with their peers if they're being taken advantage of or, those kinds of things. So it's all that relationship stuff. So getting a glimpse inside their thought process and then offering just little niblets of, getting them to think through it, recognizing that might not always happen in one sitting, but also giving them the opportunity to say, I get that you're tired of talking, because I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Right.
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And just tell them, you know what, you've done such a good job letting me know what's going on, and I get that you're tired. I'll stop talking now, but this is so important that we are going to talk about this again later. Okay. And then you can set a time frame. You can say, let's say the conversation's happening on a Wednesday and you say, this weekend when you and I have more time and we're kind of relaxing and chilling, let's make a plan to touch base with each other. Yeah. And then it's your job to remember. It's our job to remember as parents.
Set a reminder.
Yeah. I use my phone all the time. Then going back and saying, remember that really hard conversation? I know you got tired and I know you got frustrated. I'd like to have that again. Is this a good time?
Yeah.
And I will tell you, it's interesting because that's one of the things that, one of the curricula that I teach is called Triple P, Positive Parenting Program. And one of the tenets that's in there is when you have to have those conversations with your kids, with your teenagers, making sure it's a good time for them. And all
that's
of my...
so good.
Yeah, but
that's
all of
so
my
good.
Parent stuff went, I don't care if it's a good time for them.
Right.
If I want to, we're going to deal with this
talk now. Yeah.
I used to be that way.
Yeah. And I still have that even when I teach it. I know. I feel the same way. Every time I think about, is this a good time for my kid? And there's a point where I go, I don't care. I don't care. It's a good time for me. We're doing it.
Yeah.
And so being able to give yourself grace when you do things like that, and then being able to say, is this a good time? And if they say, no, I don't want to talk about it, because let's face it, as we want to avoid difficult conversations, that's our human nature.
Yeah.
And just nailing them down to a time. Okay, I get it. It's not good talking about it now. When would you like to talk about it this weekend? Because then they start to get like, okay, I'm not going to get away with this.
Right.
But again, the subliminal message is my time is respected. My emotions are respected. Mom or dad is here. They're going to force me and I don't like it. But there is a little bit, maybe if it's not conscious, that they care enough about me that they know this is important. They're going to push me.
That's something to mention when we do sit down with them. Is like the reason that we're sitting down to talk to you about this, even though you may not want to talk about it, is because we care about you.
Yeah.
And because this is important.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. It's giving them that time, and it's letting them feel that they are respected, that they matter, and that they do have a voice.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important for them to feel that they are being heard.
Yeah. And Sonja, you said something really important about with your daughter, that you've tried to remember yourself at that age.
Yes.
So going back and remembering yourself at that age, and you may not have struggled. Yeah. You may not have struggled with the same thing she's struggling, but you can kind of remember and touch base with what it felt like to be a 10-year-old girl, an 11-year-old girl, you know, or a 9-year-old boy or a 10-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And so it gives you a little bit of empathy. But also I always challenge myself as well as other parents that when you try to force your kids to have a difficult conversation, remember how much you avoid difficult conversations yourself. Because we all do. We all have those like friendships that you no longer have because you just did not want to have that difficult conversation.
Yeah.
You know? So touching, if you're not touching in there, touching in with yourself of how it feels to have a difficult conversation, and, you know, having that empathy for how much you don't want to.
And then maybe lighten it up when you're talking to them, you know. There's something that, well, I know Sonja has, you know, something serious, pretty serious that she wants to get into, but, you know, just a thought that I've had, I think we've had it. It always seems like when we're going through something with the kids, you start looking it up. And then by the time you start to figure it out, the problem has already changed. It's like it's like cops and criminals.
Right.
It's like we're always one step behind. Yes. Well, not that they're criminals or anything, you know. That ended up bad. But it's similar. It's like it's like, oh, okay, now I understand what's going on here. And it's like they're not even dealing with that anymore. Yeah. They're on to the next issue. Right. And now we got to figure that out.
Yeah.
You know, is there anything that, like, I'm sure you've seen this in your career dealing with parents and kids.
Well, and I would challenge you, why do you have to figure it out? You know, with teenagers, really it's when we can get those skills, like we were talking about, like understanding how important it is to give your daughter the space. That's creating that trust. That's creating all of those things. That's creating her being able to figure out how to stand her ground, how to figure out what works for her, what's good for her body at any given time. So those are those foundational elements.
Yeah.
But we as parents, we love our kids. We want to fix everything. We want to make life so easy for them because we know how hard life can be. And so maybe switching that mindset a little bit rather than focusing on solving that problem that they have, stepping back and being a partner with them, coming alongside them or even behind them to find out how they're going to be able to solve that problem. You know, being able to, you know, again, not all kids want to talk through stuff. Boys in particular have a tough time talking, you know, about emotions and feelings because as a society, we don't often give them the space or the permission to do that.
Well, like you were saying, yeah.
And so it might be the doing, like, you know, what is the next step, the next small step to help you figure this out, you know?
Yeah.
And then asking them, what do you need from me?
This is all so good. I should have a notepad. But hey,
It's
I
a good
can
thing
watch
we're recording this
over and over again.
If only there was a technology
So if
that
there was
you
only
could
a way-
write it.
If only there was a way to listen to this and watch it again.
But I'm a note taker. Like
Yeah.
if I take the
Yeah.
note, it sticks.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So, but I
Yeah.
can watch it and take
No, this
notes
is one
later.
that I mean I listen to them all, but this is one that I'll listen to.
Yeah.
Yep.
multiple times.
I'm firmly convinced there's a direct connection between the hand that you write with and your memory in your brain, because I don't remember stuff until I write it.
No,
down.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
for sure.
We actually last podcast we were talking about writing stuff, like having something around to write on all the time.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're trying to do something. If you're a parent, you're trying to learn something.
Yeah.
You got to write stuff down
Yeah.
from time to time.
Yeah.
On one of the podcasts, we were talking about how hard it is to be a parent, because it's like you're always feeling like you're disciplining them. You know, it's like you just want to enjoy them and have fun with them.
Yeah.
And it seems like most of the time that's just not the case.
Yeah. Well, and again, challenging the way we think about this. We are always disciplining them, because discipline comes from the root word of disciple, and disciple means to teach. And so we should be disciplining them every minute of the day, because we want to be teaching them either by our example, by how we handle the good stuff, how we handle the bad stuff, and how, we pick ourselves up when we drop the ball and fall flat on our faces. So we really are disciplining our kids all the time, because we're hoping to teach them how to be the kind of adults they want to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a post, and I know that we talked about this, about apologizing when you're wrong to your children.
Mm-hmm.
And now that is something that when we were being raised, that was not the norm whatsoever.
You know, I've gotten to the point where it's easy,
Yeah.
like once you get into the habit and the practice enough. The other day we were sitting with Joe, and like I told you, it's getting little by little, I have an issue with my temper or whatever, but little by little it's getting shorter and shorter. And it got to the point with Joey, we were doing something and I was frustrated, and I realized I started getting, my attitude started changing. I started getting angry, and then I stopped, and then I was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry for yelling at you. And I was like, I got to work on it. I told Joey, I was like, I got to work. I was like, we got to work on it. Right.
Yeah.
I was like, we all got stuff we got to work on. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. It's not it's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's just, you do it, but I also got to work on it,
Yeah.
because it can't just be like, I'm sorry
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's great. Again, those things that our kids see that we struggle with, and see us recognizing we're struggling with them, and then making progress, and the apology thing for so many parents feels like giving up power. Like we have to be here and our kids are here. Where, in as far as authority goes, authority is different than power. Authority, we're here and our kids are here because we're the CEOs of our family, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the authority, you gain authority when you apologize. Anytime you can share your power with your kids, you gain authority. It's not giving up power, it's gaining it.
That's
You know
so
what?
good.
That reminds me of leadership, because that's one of the things. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're leading a household, and that's one of the things that when you're leading people, when you have a team, and you get asked a question or there's something that you don't know, when you can, as the leader, when you can admit that you were wrong or that you don't know something, like some people see it as like a sign of weakness. Like, my people aren't going to trust me. Like, they're going to think that I don't know what I'm doing. When actually it's a sign of strength, that you're vulnerable enough to tell your team, like, we'll be fine. I don't know, but we're going to figure it out, Yeah.
And we all have talents. And being a leader doesn't mean you automatically absorb every talent in the world. It's about knowing how to use your team. Just like in our families, we all have talents. We all have strengths. And it's really learning how to bring those strengths to make the family, to make the team stronger.
Yeah.
So earlier we were talking about helping our children to become more aware of their feelings and all the noise, right? All the little voices, just the things that they tell themselves. And today there's such a high percentage rate when it comes to suicide. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, and that's something that I want to get into, maybe being able to recognize the signs, or what is it that we can do as parents, you know, to help our children. Because so many times, I mean, I have a very good friend who lost her son at the age of 17, who was, you know, a great student and happy. And at least that's what he was putting on. That's the face that he was putting on. And when this happened, everyone was so devastated and did not see it. Actually, she is someone that we need to get on. And it was someone who on social media who started feeding him, you know, and teaching how to do it. Like, and there's this law that she's trying to get passed to where they hold those individuals accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some things that maybe we can do, or some signs?
Well, I don't know if maybe, how does it, do you have any experience on like how it's like, what is the thinking, like how it starts, and then what can we look out for?
Well, I will fully admit that I am not a mental health professional.
Yeah.
So when I think about what I know about a teen's brain, and typically, you know, when people commit suicide, when they complete a suicide, they're coming from a place where there is no hope. So there's not the ability to see that somewhere down the line it will get better.
They're in the middle of the storm.
Right. They're in the middle of the storm, and they truly, honestly feel like the world will be better if I was not in it. Like somehow there would be some magic solving of all the problems if I wasn't here. And
at least for them.
Yeah. Well, no, for other people.
They feel that way for other people.
And for other people and for themselves, ending that pain. But like, I wouldn't be such a burden to my parents, or, you know.
They don't have to worry about my homework if.
Right. And so, but when we think about teen brains as well, and this is, you know, for me, when I look at this, I see the connection between the part of the brain that can connect to past experiences, bring them to the present, and project them to the future. So the abstract rather than the concrete. Teenagers are moving and wiring that piece a little more strongly and a little more strongly. So when they're in the moment, it's difficult for them on their own, especially if there's a bunch of other stressors. If there are other things going on, like if there is something, if they have maybe an undiagnosed learning disability, or, you know, something of that nature, unaddressed trauma that might have happened, then it's hard to go back and say, there was a time when I struggled and things got better. And they need help from an adult. That's that lend them our lobes. So we need to be able to say, think about a time where you had a problem and you were able to solve it. What happened? And you have to guide them through that. Like, what was the problem? Who did you go to? How did it feel? What advice helped and what advice didn't help? Who was there for you? Who made things feel worse? You know, we have to walk them through that problem solving piece. Yeah. And then having them remember what it felt like after that problem got solved, and then having them consider it could happen again. So when I think of teen suicide, I know there's a lot that goes into that from a mental health perspective, but I always think about this, you know, it's with teen pregnancy too. It feels good. It's not going to happen to me. I don't see what's going to happen. I can't project. I don't have that abstract thinking to even think about how hard it might be to have a kid.
Yeah.
You know, in the real physical sense, you know, the pain and the uncomfortableness of really being pregnant for girls, but then the lifelong commitment of being a parent for the rest of your life. There's not a connection there. There's not a real understanding there. And so that, I think, is something that plays into, other than the mental health piece of it, that plays into not being able to see that future consequence.
As far as like the teen pregnancy thing, like that's a great point to just bring up to them, you know, because Audrey's getting to that age and be like, look, when you were born, that's when, I mean, at least for you, like we became parents. Yeah. That hasn't stopped for the last 11 years.
Yeah. And it won't.
So imagine if, I mean, something like that happens at 14, 15, 16, 7, like it's on now.
Yeah.
It's on.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a big deal.
Right. Yeah. It's so there's, I told Sonja, knowing that we were going to talk a little bit about this, there's a website and a helpline called Teen Line, and it's teenagers helping teens. So that's cool. That's a nice connection that they know, like if kids are struggling, that they're talking to other teens, they're talking to peers that can, you know, more relate to where they're at. So so that
Teen Line.
Okay. Yeah. So they have an app and they, you know, have the phone number and everything. So, but yeah, I think I go back to, in order to, we can go on and you can search, you know, the internet to say, what are signs and symptoms? What should I look for? But you can't tune in to your kids on a cognitive level, on an emotional level, on a social level, if you're exhausted.
Right.
And, you know, again, remembering the layering of stress that's happening for parents and for kids.
Yeah.
From, you know, the pandemic, from all the fears, from the time where we couldn't find toilet paper and there was nothing and pasta and rice and canned goods were not on the shelves. That hasn't entirely gone away for parents.
And that might have been traumatic for some kids because some parents, I'm sure, like, people are all different.
Yeah.
Some people just freak.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you know that, what am I going to do if I can't provide for my family?
Yeah.
You know, there is that fear. So those things are all very, very real, you know, and understanding that now that, you know, vaccines are available and we're slowly seeing our numbers go down and, you know, being very cautious, even with, you know, the lifting of the mask order here in Arizona, that, you know, we're still being very cautious. So there's still that, I will tell you, it's still, for me, remembering to put I've got masks in my purse, in my car, because I walk out of the house. Yeah. I walk out of the house and it's not even on my radar. And I think to myself, it's been over a year. Why is this so hard for me to remember to do? And I'm not even kidding. I get inside the store and there's this automatic reaction to want to just take the mask off. Like you would take a jacket off when you get inside. So it's still not normal. That's not a normal thing. And it's been going on for a year.
Well, I hope it's not a normal thing.
No. And
I'm
hopefully
just over it. Ugh.
Yeah.
So hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we've got parents who have lost jobs and who have had to find other ways to support their families and, you know, lost housing. And so we're looking at layers and layers of stress that take its toll on parents and on kids. Yeah. And that whole piece of, you know, we're very focused on the academic losses of not being in school, and they're real, but there is also the developmental losses, especially for teens, because that peer-to-peer interaction is important for all kids. But for teenagers, this is part of learning how to be an adult and learning how to be a friend and learning how to be in a relationship. And they've lost a year of that.
Well, imagine most of them, and this is when Nikki was living with us, that's my niece, she was so used to not really communicating. Like, it was so hard for her to order a pizza over the phone, remember?
Yeah.
You know, but it's that lack of communication. And today, our kids are falling back because they're texting. They're, you know, instead of picking up the phone and saying, hey, how are you doing? Hi. Yeah. So it's that on top of everything else that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the lack of communication is real. Like, they don't know, you know, how to express themselves.
Right. Yeah. And I see that in, you know, some kids have stayed connected through, you know, FaceTime and Zoom and, you know, those kinds of things and you know, different texting and servers and all of that. But, and that's great. They've kept in contact and they've built relationships in that way, which is much more comfortable. But it's always that pairing of our kids, because of cell phones and the internet that we didn't have when we were kids, they are developing relationships in different ways.
Yeah.
But that peer-to-peer, just physically being together, that connection that happens physiologically, just because we're made of energy, that is so important. And it's so important for them.
Yeah. I mean, that the whole electronic internet, all that, like, that's all new.
Yeah.
That's all new. We've been like this for thousands of years, interacting face to face with people. And now all of a sudden you have, you know, the group texts and all the different apps. So we're still trying, you know, figuring it out,
right?
And the effects of it.
Yeah. And how to live with it, because it's not going away.
Yeah.
It's not going
and
away.
it's changing.
Yeah.
And not only is it changing, but the companies are getting, you know, they're smart too, and they're figuring out how to, you know, keep us hooked.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
That's a whole nother podcast in itself.
So now we'll start the second hour of the podcast. You know, we'll get into all that.
But that's why, like, you know, we're just like with this whole giving our children a cell phone, we've waited. Like, we've just held out, because I'm like, I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong. But I can tell you that the parents that did give in, they regret it. Yeah. They regret it. So, like, there's this technology, this group that you're, you know, part of on Facebook.
In the tech world. Yeah.
And they talk.
It's all bad. I mean, I don't think there's very, very much good. But at the same time, like we've talked about, I think at least with Audrey, she's getting to a certain age and she's going to a certain place where, you know, everybody's going to have a phone. Yeah. And then that will, I don't know. It's just hard. We got to kind of balance it out and maybe put restrictions on it or
definitely.
something.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, again, that's another thing that's a big ask for parents is navigating how to keep them safe. You know, it's kind of like I say, you know, I go back to, you know, cars, you know, our kids get to 15 and a half, 16, and we got to figure out how to keep them safe in cars. And cell phones, it's a bigger thing because they can access anywhere, anyhow, and, you know, anytime. And so it's about where we put those limits for them, you know, using that technology and learning how to use it without it using you. Yeah. You know, learning learning how to use it in effective ways, in healthy ways. Because, you know, it's going to be there, and they're going to have a cell phone at some point, you know, when they get 18 and they can go into a store and buy it for themselves. Yeah. So, you know, it's like any other decision. We want them making mistakes now while we are there to support them, rather than making those big mistakes when there's not a safety net.
So Audrey is saving up for a phone. Yeah. I just found that out.
Okay.
A few weeks ago. She's doing really well. This is the first time she's ever been able to save like this.
How much does she have?
Motivation.
Exactly. You don't even know
how much does she have. I would have thought like 37 cents.
No. Oh no. No, she's been saving. So, question for you. Uh-huh. When she has enough money.
No. We're the parents.
Yeah.
We're the parents. Just because you have money doesn't mean you could do anything you want with it.
You still are the decision makers, you know, you really are. You still are the CEOs. You are the authority in the family, and you congratulate her and you set a limit. This is when it is this time you can buy a phone.
And I'm not saying no. I'm just saying just because you have money doesn't mean you can buy whatever you want.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
It's a great, but I would say really encourage her. Tell her how proud you are that she was able to, that she set a goal. You know, really kind of think about what, other than it being frustrating and creating stress for you, because now you're feeling like, oh my gosh, she raised the money, I have to give her a phone. No, you don't. But you have to reinforce those things that are going to serve her later outside the phone. So she set a goal. She practiced self-control. She, especially for somebody who is known not to save money,
Right.
she stuck to it. She had persistence and she persevered. And there were probably, and you can even ask her, there are probably a lot of things you wanted to buy. And how did you do that? How did you stop yourself from spending that money? Tell me about that.
Yeah.
So you're reinforcing, even though she doesn't get the end goal yet, you're reinforcing all of the amazing things that she just did to get to something that she can't yet have.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
Is there a certain age? I think I asked you last time.
And I evaded that, I think. I don't remember how I got out of answering it.
But go back and listen to episode 48.
Yeah. For some kids, it's going to be, earlier than for other kids.
Yeah.
I feel like no kid is going to, no matter how old they are, until, what brain science tells us is mid to late 20s before we really have that strong wiring in the part of our brain that can prolong reward, can impulse control. So it really is about your kid. It really is about your kid and it could be, you let them have a phone during school hours. They have a phone, they take it to school, they pick it up walking out the door, they set it down walking in the door, and that's all they get it.
Yeah.
And so I think for parent comfort levels is start small, start anything small.
Yeah.
We do that with, I look at the way driver's license are when kids get a driver's license, there's a restriction.
Yeah. They get the permit first. You can't drive at night.
Yep. You can't drive with other people in the car unless they're siblings. You can't drive,
Yeah.
So there is a certain, phasing in of responsibility.
Okay. Because really a phone isn't any different from a tablet if you don't have social media.
Right.
So you could have a phone.
Yeah.
But then the only real difference is that you can call and text people.
Right. And so, those are, I would say, for you be asking the question, when is it okay for her to have a Facebook and an Instagram? Because that's going to get
So that's like
more,
25.
I was thinking more
that's
like
what you
30.
were saying.
I was
the
thinking
brain
30.
So you can drink and smoke at 21. Yeah. No social media until you're 25.
Yep. So, and again, that's, having that it's the foundations that you're building now, having that open conversation, open communication. Even with the bad news, you can come to me and trust me that we'll figure this out together. And never promise there are no consequences, but come to me, we can talk it through, we can figure it out. And that's, when they're doing that and when we've done our work to build that trust and respect them and respect their space and respect their privacy. I'm thinking of, I just was in a webinar a couple of weeks ago talking about building trust and about with kids, especially with teenagers, knocking on their door and waiting for permission to enter their room. Now I'll tell you, for me, it's like I pay for the house. I'll enter the room whenever I feel like it.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up.
I'll tell you, for me,
so glad.
As a dad, I had to learn that. And I'm like, all right, no more. I got to knock all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, because she might be.
Yeah. So
you get to a certain point. Before I could just walk in.
Right.
Doesn't matter what state she's in.
Yeah.
But now I can't.
No. But even as moms, we need to respect that. Like, and a way to phrase it is, if you don't give me a reason not to trust you, I will trust you.
Yeah.
So you got to start putting some of that responsibility on them. Like, I'll knock and wait, but if there's something,
I'm taking the doors off.
Yeah.
No,
Get a curtain.
Yeah.
But again, and addressing that, giving them a chance to fall down, get back up and say, okay, in our house, it is going over the time limit when all electronics are supposed to be ended. And so when that boundary gets pushed, it's, you give them an opportunity, say, I noticed this. Let's remember, what is the rule? What is the shutdown time? and then the second opportunity, then there is a consequence. So I want to give you a chance I understand the way your brain is. You can't always say, okay, it's 8:00. I need to turn my cell phone off, because there might be a really juicy conversation happening with your friends, or one of your, and let's spin it a positive way. One of your friends needs help. They need someone to talk to. They're trying to reduce the noise. They're feeling frustrated. They're, they need you to stay on the phone. Well, that's the point where you come to me and you say, look at what's happening. Is it okay if I stay on the phone? And letting them know you don't have to hide it. Let's have a conversation about it.
That's part of being a good friend.
Yeah.
So I just noticed there's something that her room, like I noticed that she's been keeping her door closed all the time, and she's, she'll be on her tablet and I'll, walk in and I'm like, hey, why do you have your door closed?
Yeah. It feels safer.
Yeah.
It feels safer sometimes. It's not, we have to quiet down that. We have noise too, the fear monster noise,
right?
That the door's closed, something's happening that could be detrimental. So we got to quiet that fear. Remember who we've raised. Remember, the skills that we have. And remember, it's all about communication. It's all about communication and trust.
Yeah.
And so being able to, she may not know why she may not be able to verbalize why her door is closed. But it could be something as simple as the house is too loud and she just can't deal with it right now. It could be,
she might want to get away from her brother for a little bit.
Yeah, that's true too. But also, you think about that perimeter. When I close my door, the perimeter of my space is closed. And that feels safe, because what goes on outside this perimeter, I have no control over. This pandemic that has stressed out my parents.
It's not in here.
That has stressed out my friends. It can't get to me in here. I can control this perimeter. And so sometimes the door closed is safety, and sometimes it's privacy, and sometimes it's quiet, and sometimes it means they're doing something they shouldn't be doing.
But I'm like thinking, like, sometimes you have parents that are just like, why is the door closed? What are you doing in there? And then like, you just can't even get some time to, like you said, if everything is just, there's so much going on outside and you want to just chill for a minute by yourself.
Yeah.
And then you got somebody opening your door and coming in.
Yeah. And, and that's a breaking of trust. That's a breaking of trust when we do that to our kids.
Yeah.
But those parents that what's going on, they see what's going on in the world and they get scared, and we act out of fear, and we let that fear voice dictate, this feeling that naturally they're doing something that's going to put them in harm's way. And what we've got to do is trust that naturally they may inadvertently be doing things to put them in harm's way, because they just don't, they don't again, understand. It's that decision-making part of their brain. But we give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. So another thing that we've been going through is that we've noticed her and her little brother, they're 2 years apart. Mm-hmm. They were so close. Mm-hmm. They were so close. I mean, they would not sleep in separate rooms. They were always together. Mm-hmm. And the way she has, distanced herself from Miguel, she's done that with my son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's almost gotten mean and rude.
Yeah. Well, and I think telling her it's okay that you want to have your personal space, but again, the authority in our house, we speak kindly to each other. It's a little kid term, but I love the word bubble space, because it gives you the opportunity to say, today my bubble is big. And that's a non-threatening way to say, everybody just give me some space today. Because if we say, everybody give me space, what's going to happen? Mama's going to go, what's wrong? What's wrong? What can I do? Can I help?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Oh my God.
Do you want a cookie? Do you want to go to Starbucks?
Chocolate? Yeah.
Do you want chocolate?
Yeah.
Should we make it? Do we need to bond? Do we need a girl day?
That's me.
I'm calling myself out on that because that's what happens. So so saying I need space could trigger the mama bear, and so being able to say my bubble's a little bigger today.
Yeah.
It's a way to be able to go, okay, you just need a little space.
Nice.
But getting the sibling to go along with it is its own challenge. But
Right.
there are weird things happening to my body and to my brain, and I don't quite get it. And
But how do you
sometimes-
explain that to a 9-year-old? Because
Yeah.
listen, his feelings are getting hurt.
Yeah.
The other day she had a cousin over, and they're the same age, and Joey's only 2 years younger than him, but he sees this little boy who's his cousin having fun with his sister, and he's like, "Oh, I miss that.
Yeah.
I miss that."
Yeah.
So instead, he acts out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, how do you explain that to him?
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Hey, your sister, she loves you."
Mm-hmm.
No, she doesn't. She hates me. And I'm like, "Oh, because he's such a sweet little boy." And it's hard to explain to him that I'm just like, "Hey, girls are crazy."
I'll go get a hug from him right then. I'm like, "Come here, buddy."
Yeah.
She hates me too. Give you a hug.
Yeah. And it's hard because again, not being able to understand what's in the present moment and not being able to, and it might be just reminding him of a time as recently as possible that they bonded, recently. Well, I know right now this is the way that she's feeling, and she's feeling like she needs some space, and and you can bring up the age, they're kind of going through the same thing, so they're doing their thing right now, and it makes, and acknowledge it doesn't feel good when you get left out. But remember when she helped you with your homework, that shows that she cares. She didn't have to do that.
There's this game that I'm gonna get them, and the reason why, the dance game, is because they'll do it together. That's why it's something that will help them bond.
Yeah. Well, and just because their relationship looks different doesn't mean the bond is broken. So they are still bonded. She's still, you bring, and I'm using air quotes, an assailant into the house, whatever that is, whether it's, somebody that's being mean to him or, whatever it might be, and see how quickly her mama bear comes out to protect her brother, because it will. It will, because that bond is there. But these are also safe people. My parents, my brother, that I know, I feel kind of confident I can be my awful self, and they're still going to love me no matter what. Yeah. And so he gets pulled into that bubble of people that love me no matter what. So it's okay for me to be in my mind, I'm not going to lose these people by being awful. Not that she thinks it's okay or that she likes being awful. But that's emotions. That's understanding. That's, again, the layering of all the impacts of the pandemic on top of normal teenage ups and downs.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Normal teenage figuring out my emotions, figuring out who I am, who I want to be in this moment, who I want to be in the next moment, who I want to be with this person, who I want to be with that person. It's all, not to demean it, but it's all dress up and play all over again in a different way.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah. It's just,
that's good.
And it's a scary way because it's a more, getting ready to be an adult way that we're dressing up and playing. So
I asked one of my clients, how did you get through it? Because I could see that their kids were close to them. And she said, lots of alcohol. That's what she told me.
God.
She said lots of alcohol.
That's a great way to end the podcast. After all the great information, lots of alcohol. Oh my God.
So I'm like, well, some of my clients give me good advice, and some,
Well, you know what? I think
not
the
so
people
much.
that listen to this podcast might be down with that.
Well, I wouldn't say that like an occasional glass of wine is not kind
After
of
they go to bed.
Yeah, and not kind of, an okay. But really it starts with trusting ourselves, trusting that you have done your very best job to instill those values in them. And that it will come back. You will see it. It's a different. When you think about the bond is there because if she felt like she had to convince Joey to love her, she would not be acting the way. She trusts that he loves her. So she can treat, and that's horrible, but so that she can not necessarily be her best self because she doesn't feel like she has to earn love. She doesn't have to earn love from you. She doesn't have to earn love. She can, push away and push back on Joey too. because she's not feeling like she has to earn the love.
And we do that as adults with each other.
Yeah.
We take advantage of those that we love the most because we know that regardless that they're going to love us.
Yes. And there's a great, actually this would be, you guys might like this book. Kelly Flanagan is an author that I followed for a while. And he just recently in February released a book called True Companions. And I can't remember the word now, but it's this sense of when we're with our true companions and the people that are closest to us, we kind of take things for granted. He has a really nice word for it that's escaping me right now, but we sort of forget about, those ways that we have tried in the past, during our courtships, that we just sort of take, we just understand that to be true. So it just sort of, kind of goes off the radar. And so, like you said, we're awful and we forget that, to keep that courtship going and to, to recognize those things with our companions.
So
Well,
excellent.
This
time
such
has
an uplifting.
flew by.
Yes.
It is. It's crazy.
Yes.
It always
We'll
does.
have you back. We'll have you
Yeah,
back.
definitely. No, thank you for being with us.
Yeah, we appreciate your knowledge, your time. It's priceless, and I'm sure people that are watching it are thinking the same as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Make sure you guys go to oppositesattractpodcast.com. Thank you, Sandy, for being on the show with us. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure people out there listening appreciate it too, and we've gotten a lot of great information from this podcast.
So until next time,
Bye.
bye.
Bye.